Hello and welcome to this video, and this video is going to be called Glastonbury, New Age Utopia, or Woke Hellhole. Right, so you can see I'm getting better at these clickbaity titles. That's a pretty clickbaity title, isn't it? And before I get into this video, I want to say I don't think it's either of those things, but in that title, I want to sort of encapsulate a premise that I am going to explain in the second half of this video. But before we get on there, the question is am I the right person to have any sort of appraisal or review of the Glastonbury Festival? I never went. And when the weekend started, I had no interest in whatsoever. I didn't watch any of the concerts on the TV. Everyone else I knew did. And I was aware of, on Facebook, this continual stream of comments and reviews of various artists that were playing. The one that struck me most notably was the sort of negative reviews around Guns N' Roses. And I thought, well, that's strange, everyone seems to be knocking Guns N' Roses, Elton John, the king of pop as he is now, taken over the crown from Michael Jackson, has done his final gig and everybody seemed to love that. I haven't watched it. I saw about 5 minutes of Cat Stevens, and that's, what a great songwriter. It's a great celebration of all these incredible old, pensioners that now represent the best of rock and pop music from the golden age of rock and pop music. And I think that's what Glastonbury is, really, isn't it? It's all about legends. It's all about the past now. It's all about celebrating this wonderful art form which is sort of closing its doors slowly to the world. And, saying its last hurrah before it goes off to bed and moves into myth. So I did watch in the end the Guns N' Roses gig, and I also watched the Louis Cole gig, and I watched the Left Field gig as well. Those are the ones I watched last night. I watched Left Field because the drummer in Left Field is a drummer called Bid, who I know. And he is the best at playing that sort of live house, techno drumming. And I just wanted to see how he was doing. And I thought they were fantastic, That guy's triggering so much stuff when he plays live, not just the beats, but lights and all sorts of things. And with the two other guys sort of stuck behind their computers, it was great to see Bid standing up in every single gap within the music and sort of waving at the audience. That was a fantastic thing to see. So it was nice to see Bid there. I watched Louis Cole, and what an incredible gig, What that was the best of contemporary jazz on stage in front of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, just going for it. There was no compromise. Every track had these long sort of funky freeform solos, and their whole performance sold the jazz improvisation. Louis Cole's an absolute genius. And as much as I've knocked the contemporary jazz scene and people have said, well, what about Louis Cole? Yeah, Louis Cole, he's the man. He is it. That is how you play jazz. That is jazz, right? Not a guy in a suit, playing jazz standards. You can do that if you want, and it's a wonderful thing, and we all appreciate it. But if you want to know where the cutting edge is, it was there on that stage, and it's cutting edge for me, because it's not just some minority thing, stuck away. This is mainstream. This is like BBC TV broadcast of the world. Louis Cole playing this avant-garde, funky, bitches brew influenced jazz. Absolutely brilliant. I almost felt that Glastonbury wasn't worthy of him, Anyway, I thought that was fantastic. And Guns N' Roses, they really got some flack, I think. I thought they were fantastic. I thought the band were incredible. I thought Slash was just, sublime. He stepped forward at one point and did this sort of harmonic minor guitar solo as the world was turning to dusk. And he stood there like a proper guitar hero, commanding 100,000 people in a show that lasted nearly 3 hours. Now, it was Axl Rose who got a lot of flack. And I'm like, well, look, Guns N' Roses have been going for 35 years, right? Axl Rose has one of the most incredible voices in rock history, one of the biggest ranges in pop or rock history. In the old days, he had a range of about 5 octaves. That's incredible, right? He's now 60 years old and he's having to sing those songs. Now, how many singers that performed at Glastonbury could go out and sing Guns N' Roses songs? Yeah, the guy's diminished in a certain area. It's not the voice that we knew 35 years ago. I saw Guns N' Roses on the Appetite to Destruction tour, so I can remember it. But for me, he was hitting those notes, and most importantly, he was commanding the stage like the front man that he is, one of the great frontmen, running around. And what I heard, this is what I heard, was somebody singing, hitting the notes, negotiating about around the bit of range that he was missing, and you could hear the natural sort of rock and roll, what's the word? You know, rock and roll is not about hitting everything note perfect. It's about the visceral performance, and that's what I heard. He was sacrificing some of the sound because he was running around shouting and all that type of stuff. The BBC's outside broadcasts was appalling throughout everything that I saw, and the more the performance involved air, the worse it was. Does anyone now know how to record live a rock band? You know, it's like Left Field sounded great because it's all stuck into DI boxes, isn't it? But you know, Guns N' Roses, which is a real band playing and rocking, it was like, where was the bass? Where was the bass end of the drums? Where was Axl's voice? You know, really, really odd. I felt they were a little bit let down. The audience there seemed to be loving it. So I'm not going to have Guns N' Roses knocked, right? So what I saw, you know, I really enjoyed. I thought it was fantastic, right? So it's all great. It's great to have music becoming the central part of our weekend, albeit maybe just here in the UK, and some of you elsewhere are thinking, what the hell is Andy talking about? So what is Glastonbury? Glastonbury has become probably the most high-profile music festival in the UK. It emerged in the early 70s when a guy called Michael Eavis decided to put on some sort of new age hippie festival on his grounds. Back then, it really was a sort of countercultural thing. You know, they banged the stage up, put a sound system in there, and then all these hippies descended. I'm sure everyone played for nothing in the early days, and you would have bands like T-Rex, or as it was then Tyrannosaurus Rex, or Gong or Hawkwind would get up and everyone would take loads of drugs and they'd sit in the field and they'd all do all that and they'd all bliss out, you know, much to the annoyance of the sort of mainstream culture at the time. And as time went on, this festival just got more and more successful, and as it got more and more successful, I think people wanted to experience that sort of hippie new age thing. That's what Glastonbury's thing is. Not Download, which in my day was called Monsters of Rock. That was about that. Right, that's what that one was about, you know. But Glastonbury was about this sort of new age ideal, you know, personified in this video by Steve Hillage behind me, standing in and bathed within the glow of enlightenment, right, as he looks, you know, spiritually up to the heavens. You know, that's what it was all about. That's why they're performing under a pyramid stage. It's all about energies. It's all, Glastonbury is one of these ancient places in the UK on ley lines and all that stuff, and it's all about that. It's all about dowsing and feeling that, you know, Mother Nature and paganism, and it's all that new age thing, which as I'll just kick the camera, which as time has gone on has moved from being this sort of countercultural aspects that was within rock music to now this sort of capitalist corporate entity where a certain type of, you know, middle class, educated, privileged type of person can go and spend a weekend feeling like they are a hippie, but in reality walking around and buying beef burgers for like 25 quid and getting their chakras checked. You know, that's what it's become, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a bit of capitalism. If they can make some money out of it, they can, and that's great, you know. So when I put woke hellhole, I think there's an aspect of wokeness which has grown out of that new age thing. Now, when Gong were going around talking about the environment, and when Gong were going and talking about sort of Gaia and all these ideas, everyone thought they were bonkers. It's amazing how those ideas have become so mainstream now that it can be wound into a festival of this size, which then gets covered throughout the weekend on British media and television. That's a really interesting factor. It sort of charts what we have gone through culturally in the last 50 years. How the ideas that emerged in the 1960s, the idea, of personal freedom, of liberty, of taking on other ideas, taking on other identity groups and welcoming them in, of trying to build a utopian future, that had come out of Woodstock, how those ideas have developed, they've been commercialised, and they've atrophied into something now which we can definitely point a finger at and start to see some of the contradictions that are inherent in that very idea, all right? So before we get on, I want to tell you about my own personal experience of Glastonbury. I didn't go this weekend, but I did go in 2000. In 2000, I actually played Glastonbury with Robert Plant. I was playing in a band called the Prog, Brian, and we headlined on Saturday night the acoustic stage, which wasn't the biggest stage at Glastonbury. Robert didn't want to do the biggest stage, and he didn't want anyone to film the performance or video it, so it was all closed off. And I can remember before I left to go and do the gig, Jo Wiley, who's a music TV presenter, she turned around and said, this is possibly the most awaited show of the weekend because no one's going to get to see it, so everyone will be there to watch it. And I can remember leaving in my car to go and thinking, no pressure then. So I trundled down and had a very strange Glastonbury experience in that what it was like for me was being dressed in my best stage clothes, driving down in a lovely air-conditioned coach, driving into Glastonbury all the way through to a beautiful backstage area that was no mud and it was all clean and there was lots of bins and food and all that type of stuff, stepping out into that and then walking onto a stage in which everybody who was performing at Glastonbury had grabbed all the front rows. All the legends were there to see Robert do his thing. I felt the pressure, the band felt the pressure, and I think Robert felt the pressure as well because he hadn't done anything like that for a while. I remember, and our band was not playing Zepp songs, it was just playing weird acoustic folky type stuff. And I think the feeling was, is this really going to go down well? And I remember when we started playing, the audience just loved it. And there was a lot of emotion on that stage when we played. I can remember looking at Robert, there was a lot of emotion. And I came off stage feeling like we pulled something off on that gig. It was a fantastic gig. When you play Glastonbury, it's all a big sort of panicky changeover. And I can remember standing on the side of the stage, pretty nervous about what I was about to do. And the sound guy said, he said, "Don't talk to me, don't say anything, just get on stage and we'll sort it out." And I can remember sort of walking out, sitting down, and I started playing, no sound check, and it was there. Those guys knew what they were doing, I have played some big festivals where that hasn't been the case, but on that stage it was. Did the gig, absolutely incredible memories. I can remember coming off stage and going into the backstage area, and there was Boris Johnson, who eventually became a Prime Minister of this country and has sort of resigned under a cloud recently, and he was talking to a completely naked man. There was this man that was doing a sponsored walk across the UK in the nude, right? This is one of the many surreal things that have happened to me that when I look back on my life, I often have to say, was that a dream? That memory, the Boris Johnson one with the naked man, is that real? And it could well be a dream, but I definitely remember it happening as I came off stage. We'd done a gig a few weeks before in Frome, and I can remember some people came down. There was a couple of guests backstage when we finished that gig. I think the guys from Portishead had come down to watch it. And then there was this bald guy with a beard, and he started chatting to us. And I can remember my keyboard player saying to him, "Where you from then, mate?" And he said, "Well, I'm from Glastonbury." "Oh," he said, "that festival." He said, "In the old days, it was amazing. It was properly out of control, but it's gone all corporate now, hasn't it? It's gone all corporate. It's all like just, what I said at the beginning, expensive beef burgers, expensive drinks, and all these people charging a ton of money to, read your auras and all that stuff." And I had a bit of a lay into, even then in the year 2000, what Glastonbury had become. And as he was saying this, I was sort of looking at my mate Timmy Vegas. Tim, I hope you're watching. Hope you don't mind me telling this story. I've told it now. And he was looking at me, and I was sort of gesturing to him, and the penny dropped that he was actually talking to Michael Eavis, the guy that owned the festival. And I can remember him having the slow realisation of telling this guy that his festival was crap. Now it's even more corporate, isn't it? Is it a new age utopia, or is it just a capitalist utopia? I was watching a comedian the other day, and he was doing a little bit of a routine about Glastonbury, and he was pointing a bit of fun, I think, at the fact that when you turn up now, there were 4.5 metre high metal barricades all around this place, right? It's all around this, and all these new age types who want that experience, who can afford the ticket and they're ready there to do all their new age thing and feel like they're doing all that, they all trundle inside this big metal barrier, which actually has like turrets on it, like Stalag Luft 15 or whatever it was called, with people. I don't think they got machine guns, but they're looking out to make sure none of the hoi polloi will climb in, because in the old days, that was what was great about Glastonbury. If you were one of the hoi polloi, if you were one of the really truly countercultural types that, you know, didn't have a place to live, you know, and just had a bit of money in your back pocket, you know, a few spliffs, you could then trundle down without a ticket, and you could climb in, you could get in there, and it was a big free-for-all. You know, that's why there was never enough toilets, was there? Because there's more people in there than there should have been, and they were all crapping in these toilets that were then falling on the floor, you know, and then it would rain and everyone would get muddy. That's what Glastonbury was, you know. So not now. If you trundle down there and try and get in for free, it's like trying to get into Colditz. Right? I'm sure they got spotlights, and you'll have to do that thing where you have to dodge the spots, like maybe build a tunnel. Oh no, you can't build a tunnel because those barricades go down into the ground. They've even thought that you can't even tunnel your way in now. Right? The irony of that new age audience, which I'm sure, right, and I give no personal opinion on this, I just point out the irony of it, which I think is very funny, that are probably all arguing for having no borders in the UK, you know, to just let all the people on the boats in, let's just let them all in, you know, and be kind to them, which, you know, let's be kind to everybody. That's what it's all about. It's all about being kind. It's all about being nice, a nice person, showing you're a nice person, and you're sensitive, and you're in touch with the female aspect of your personality. That's what it is. It's that nature binary festival. That's what we're about. It's not download. Download's more, it's more masculine, isn't it? Download. That's all more about aggression. It's all more about war, isn't it? But Glastonbury's not like that. It's all floaty and feely, and it's all about making nice potions out of herbs that you've gathered up out the forest, isn't it? That's what Glastonbury's about. And they're all in there, and I'm sure they will do the very virtuous thing of arguing for not having a border and just letting everybody in. There's no such thing as countries. We should have no divisions. We should open our arms to the whole world, while sat there with their expensive ticket, right, with their Marks and Spencer's flask, right, and their Marks and Spencer's sandwiches inside this barricaded off new age utopia that nobody can get in unless they can afford to. I find that ironic. Do you find it ironic? You know, and so and in that situation we have all these millionaire legends flying in on their private jets and stepping out to have the adulation, while everybody there has paid a ton of money for their ticket so they can say that they were there. You know, I was there when Elton John did his last performance. Oh my God, Elton John. Yes, he came down from Mount Olympus, and he gifted us with his presence. He played all the hits. Whoa, he's one of the great songwriters of all time, of course, Elton John. Yeah, I've always liked him. I've always liked him right from day one. I've always recognised he's brilliant, because I'm an erudite person and I can recognise good songwriting when it comes down to it. And even though I'm old, I watched the Lizzo show and I thought she was very good. I'm up with everything that's going on in the new world that all the kids like. I'm up with all that too. There was some fantastic stuff there, very interesting, you know. very cosmopolitan, very, very erudite. That's the sort of person I am. And, you know, I could appreciate this. Whereas Guns N' Roses, they were just a nasty rock band, weren't they? Stamping around, getting notes out of tune and out of key and jumping about, you know. And I mean, it was a good laugh because they've written some good songs too. But it's not like Elton John, is it? You know, or whatever. That's what I sat there totally disinterested over the weekend in all the stuff that was flooding in through social media about this, trying to ignore it, and I got drawn in myself. I'm gonna have to watch this Guns N' Roses concert. If it's that bad, I gotta see Fat Axl, you know, with him hitting some bad notes. And I thought, bloody hell, the bloke's 60. I hope I look that good when I'm 60. I hope I look as good as Slash with his hat, you know, his hat and his curly hair. It's iconic. That's iconic. That's why we like rock music, isn't it? And I sat there and thought, they're delivering the goods. Has everybody forgotten about what rock is? Have they forgotten about it? You know what, Guns N' Roses, what do you want there? To stand up there like session musicians, sounding perfect? Well, if you live in a new age utopia, that's what it's all about. It's about perfection. It's not about accepting the world as it is, with all its foibles and all its disagreements and all its contrary concepts and all its bad and all its good. It's not about just accepting that and getting along and trying to get through. It's about exhibiting your oneness with this utopian idea of perfection that you've pulled in. And so for Axl Rose to come on singing his notes and getting a few out of tune every now and then, it's not right, is it? It's not right. Bring back Cat Stevens with his beautiful tunes about harmony. Right, so that has been my impression. I wouldn't even give it the title of critique. It hasn't been a critique of Glastonbury. What it is has been my impressions of not going to Glastonbury this weekend. If you enjoyed this, right, and I speak with no authority whatsoever, it's only my opinion. Come on, it's just my opinion. And a lot of the stuff I said just now was just to get a little bit of a wry smile and maybe poke a little bit of fun of the pomposity of an event like that. And if I've done that, well, good, you know, because that's what I'm here for, isn't it? And of course, I'm a bloke of my age, and sometimes, you know, you get the view of a man that is my age, but that is my lived experience. That is my truth. I'm a grumpy old man that doesn't want to go to Glastonbury and just wants to sit at home, eating Marmite on toast, drinking cups of tea and listening to old jazz records. And if you're one of those guys, then put a like on this video, even if you disagreed with it. Put a like on it. Press subscribe, right? And if you want to support me being a grumpy old man with my Marmite, because it costs money, you know, if you want to support me with my Marmite and toast and tea, become a Patreon right now. Come on, get on over and join the fun. Right, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going now. That's my thoughts on Glastonbury, and I will be here next year. I wonder what legendary artists will be announcing their last gig. Oh, we could only hope it's Coldplay, can't we? Come on, Coldplay, we've had enough.